And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Before we get going here, we want to hear your thoughts on the issues we're talking about tonight. Go to newsmax.com/comments and let us know. We may read one on the air. Do it now. But wait till the commercial, actually, because this is really good. The Supreme Court rejecting today a North Carolina appeal which sought to revive a requirement that abortion providers show and describe ultrasounds to pregnant women before they go through with the procedure, even if the women refuse to look or listen. Many pro-choice advocates, like the American Civil Liberties Union and, of course, the ACLU from North Carolina, who oppose the law, are pleased with the court's ruling, saying, and we quote, "We're very glad the courts have recognized that politicians have no business interfering in personal medical decisions that should be left to a woman and her doctor." However, the executive director of the North Carolina Values Coalition, her name's Tammy Fitzgerald, who supports increased restrictions on abortion, had this to say about the ruling. We have another quote. "In another medical procedure, doctors would have the duty to disclose all the relevant information, and yet a procedure as destructive and life-changing as abortion is held to a lower standard." The question is, Mr. Unger, will other states follow suit?
You know what? That woman's comment on this was so foolish to the point that it shows you what a bad situation this was. I'm thrilled that the Supreme Court didn't take this case. They shouldn't have. This is whether you are whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, this is insane to force this kind of behavior. And yes, other states will now rely on that Court of Appeals decision and challenge these laws.
Set the precedent here.
Yeah, I think that that's the case, and I agree with Rick. The law is, it's the First Amendment. You cannot force doctors. The state cannot force doctors to say certain things to their patients. You can hold doctors accountable other ways, but you cannot, by state, force doctors to say certain things. And there are other ways, if you're pro-life, to challenge the law. So in Texas right now, they just made it illegal, a number of different hospitals illegal. Unless they had actual hospital facilities, these clinics were closed down. That type of thing, to me, is a much better way if you are pro-life.
And was upheld.
And it was upheld, exactly. But this law was rightfully, I'm glad the Supreme Court didn't look at it.
Yeah, and speaking as somebody who is anti-abortion, I'm fine with anyone making their own choice. I understand that this is a personal matter. The people who are opposed to abortion can still articulate why they're opposed to abortion, but to mandate that the state tell doctors what to tell their patients, I'm troubled by it.
And to give them an invasive test like that, it's insane.
Interesting.
It's just crazy.
I noticed you used anti-abortion instead of pro-life.
I get that completely.
I am anti-abortion.
Yeah, okay. But you don't hear it very often.
Apology for that.
No, I'm not saying you should. I just don't hear it phrased that way very often.
Actually, I phrase it exactly the same way as Bill does.
You're pro-life. I didn't know that.
I am anti-abortion. I'm pro-choice.
Yes.
I'm anti-abortion, but it's not up to me to tell Heather what to do. It's up to Heather to tell Heather what to do.
It is not my place. Rick and I are weirdly in total agreement on this. It is not my place to get involved with, for example, with Heather and say this is what you must do or have to do.
You know, the show is touted, since some people have written about it recently, that we're not an echo chamber, and here you people are all agreeing with each other on Whitfield. Now
but
this,
we're doing it from different sides. That's what makes it work.
That's
you know,
what makes it interesting.
Wow. Okay, I will lay my thoughts on it as well. I am anti-abortion as well, and just the reason being that I just see so many people, particularly girls around my age or a little bit younger, who didn't get married and they want to adopt, and it is impossible to find a baby to adopt for less than like $50,000 because they're at a premium because there just aren't a lot out there. And I don't think the adoption option is pushed enough. Then again, I don't think you could reverse Roe versus Wade because that's in the fabric of our country.
Everybody has their reasons, and they're all no doubt valid. But at the end of the day, not me to tell you what to do.
Interesting. Heather, last word?
Well, I just think that it's very difficult when you start telling women what to do with their bodies because someone might want to adopt or the father of the baby might want the baby. It's the woman's body and it's a difficult thing. At the same time, I live in the state where Kermit Gosnell, that abortion doctor that was in the news,
sickening.
So I've seen a lot about those types of cases. So it's a difficult decision that's left for a woman.
Interesting. So let's move on. Republicans have been trying to tear down Obamacare ever since it got signed into law back in 2010. But very little has been said about a replacement. Well, on Fox News Sunday, host Chris Wallace asked Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan, used to be a VP candidate, you remember, if Republicans in Congress will come up with a way to make sure that the 6 to 7 million Americans depending on those subsidies are not left high and dry in the event the Supreme Court does rule against Obamacare. Ryan insisted the GOP does have a plan. He just couldn't quite get into it at the moment. Take a look.
You're saying you guarantee the Republicans will come?
We will have a solution.
yes.
that will make sure that these 6 to 7 million people will be able to keep their subsidies?
We will have a solution that addresses this law, that gives people a bridge from Obamacare, and that addresses the people who are getting caught in the crossfire, that are getting caught in this ruling.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about.
We will have a solution that addresses people who are being caught in this solution. I won't go into all of the details because, quite frankly, Chris, we want to see the nature of the ruling. There are.
No, I understand that, but here's the question.
Here.
Here's the question, Congressman.
The answer is yes. We'll have a solution for the people who are caught up in this law, so that they're not left in the lurch.
And Wallace pressed further to no avail. So when do you think we will be able to get a clearly defined plan to replace Obamacare? We only have 15 seconds.
They're not going to tell you unless the Supreme Court rules in a way that strikes down the subsidies. And their plan will be, oh, we're going to run out of time. We'll do it when we come back.
Okay. Well, you handled
I
that
know the
perfectly.
plan.
Coming up next, it's potluck time. Stay right there.